Hey everyone, time for another book. So today I'm going to be doing a part 2 to the Last Policeman series. So the first one, I think it was like a week or two ago, I put out a video on The Last Policeman by Ben H. Winters. Well, this week it's Countdown City, number 2 in the series. So I really enjoyed this. The average Goodreads rating was 3.88. I gave it 5 stars. Just like the first book, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm going to discuss, kind of first book versus second book and the emphasis of the second book. I do have my notes, so you'll see me glancing down. This book gave me a lot of food for thought, even as I was reading it, kind of ruminating over the implications of what was being written. So we'll kind of go over some of that. So Hank Palace is back in the second installation, and it starts right out with, "Hey, my husband's missing." His former childhood babysitter comes to him. "Hank, I know you're a cop. My husband just disappeared. You have to find him." So he goes and he tries to find this guy. Meanwhile, they are now 77 days out from the asteroid hitting. Everyone's, still committing suicide like the first book. They're doing their bucket list items. They're just up and leaving. So he's just like, great, how am I supposed to find this guy? But Hank Palace does it. In the first book, Nico, his sister, was kind of like a side item, just kind of like at the periphery, a little extra drama. But she definitely plays a bigger role in this. She definitely has more lines, as an actor would say. And it gets kind of interesting, and it really sets the stage for book 3. As the asteroid gets closer, like I said, more people are committing suicide, more people are bucket listing and taking off, but you also see civilization really devolving a whole lot more. Initially it was, hey, we're cutting the police force, hey, we're, rapid inflation, black market, things like that. Now you see riots actually happening. You have the Free Republic of New Hampshire being set up at the University of New Hampshire campus. Students took it over to create a utopia for the end of days. There's no coffee to be had. Lots of weird things. There's I wish I had written it down. It's, there's this group that's offering sanctuary to people, in exchange for all your stuff. They'll put you down in this underground fortification to, wait out the end of days after the asteroid hits, and you find out that it's, a load of bunk. But you see things really devolving. Like at the end of the book, Hank comes back from trying to resolve his case, and literally his entire house has been dismantled. Everything from the outside to the bricks to the copper wiring, everything is just gone. So, it really kind of sucks. So, book 1, I said that, it was very readable. Hank Palace himself is very relatable. Starting to trip over my own words here. And he tends to doubt himself a lot. There's a lot less doubt. He is a lot more self-assured, and there's much less of the seeking external validation for pursuing a case, and more just, look, I'm doing it because I feel I need to. I feel it's the right thing to do. He is still very highly relatable, but you see a lot more conflict. It's kind of like conflict directed at him, just people kind of going off on him for how he is in the face of this impending disaster, and how they perceive him reacting or interpreting their reactions to the asteroid, if that makes any sense. For instance, a lot of it is direct confrontation over his childish, kind of like his innocent view of the world, as innocent as a police officer could be in these circumstances. I mean, innocent in terms of like worldview and, you know, thinking the best of people. So he's definitely called out on it. For instance, the biggest example is McGully, one of the guys he has lunch with. You know, for the longest time, Culverson and McGully have gotten together for lunch and, you know, ordered the same stuff and kind of hashed out, you know, hey, did you hear about this? Blah, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, by the way, I'm working this case. But one day McGully shows up and he's got his suitcase with him and he's like, yeah, I'm taking off for New Orleans. My wife doesn't want to go. I do, so I left her a note. Culverson nods. I don't say anything. What is there to say? You tell Beth? Culverson asks. Nah. Blah, blah, blah. He looks up, then down again, mutters to his shirt front. I left her a note, though. Little note. Hey, I said, McGully, and he says, no, you shut up. And I say, what? And then suddenly he's hollering, furious, stalking across the diner towards me. You're like a little kid, you know that? In your tidy little universe with your notebooks and the good guys and the bad guys. That is moot, man. That is over. Well, wait till you see... Wait until the taps stop working. Then you'll see some bad guys. So he just, like, loses it on him. You know, and part of it's probably, you know, the stress of, hey, I'm going to die in 77 days or less. But it really finally hits a boiling point where Hank's worldview and his way of approaching things really starts to get to other people. You see it also with Nico, where she talks about, you know, your head's always in, you're always inside your head. You know, even when people are talking to you, you're doing your little, you know, inner policeman monologue with yourself. And he gets it even from Brett, Martha's husband, who he's sent to find. You know, when it turns out that Brett is on a mission to prevent the Coast Guard and the United States military from sinking ships, bringing in illegal immigrants, fleeing the Indonesia area where the asteroid's going to hit. Brett goes on a one-man mission to try to stop this because that's what he thinks is right. And he tells Hank essentially, like, you know, the way you're looking at it, man, is wrong. Like, they are going to kill these people, and, you know, you got your sense of right, I've got my sense of right, and this is what I have to do. And that's something that I'm going to discuss a little bit more on a later index card. Definitely in this book, Hank, like I said, is definitely settled more into his detective role. He's more self-assured, he's less doubtful of himself, and you see a lot less of the, you know, you're a dunce, Hank, you know, you're an idiot, da-da-da. You know, he kind of, like, takes the case in his stride and tries to figure out, you know, what's the next step. And he does display more this personal sense of right and propriety and protecting vulnerable people. You know, you see it when absolute chaos is breaking out in the streets. He knocks on this one door and it's an elderly couple and he says, do you have any food? And they're like, yeah, we have enough. And he's like, do not open this door for anyone ever again. Like, do not open the door because literally everything's going to hell. But you also see it, a promise that he made to his sister when they were kids comes up to the forefront more. Another scene from childhood, essentially, Nico is 10 years old at this point and Hank is 15. She's gotten drunk. At 10 years old, yes. And she starts, drunkenly going off, like, everyone leaves and you're gonna leave and blah, blah, You'll go away like they did. You'll die. You'll disappear. I won't. I said to her, I said, Nico, I will not do that. And he really, you see him really holding to this promise, or trying to, the best he can. Because Nico, like I said, she has a bigger role, and you find out more about the plan of this group that she's gotten involved in. Specifically, they want to rescue this scientist who has a plan to, push the asteroid off course, and they're gonna extract him and send him to England, where all the tools are waiting for him to get it done. So that should make for a pretty interesting book number 3. The one thing that his sense of right that I really took issue with, he has a case, he wants to close the case. He finds Brett's killed, but now he can't find Martha to tell her, hey, your husband's dead. And he links up with this other cop who's like, hey, a bunch of us got this house out in Western Massachusetts. I want you to come with me. Bring your dog. Let's go. I'm taking the kids. Let's go. She, steals a DOJ car, and they're like taking off at 90 miles an hour towards this safe house. And in the car, he figures out, oh my God, I know where she is. I'm going to close this case and let her know, her husband's dead. Meanwhile, the other cop has her 2 kids in the car, one of whom is still young enough to be sucking his thumb. And it's just like, I'm sorry, if I were the cop driving the car, I'd be like, because he's just like, oh, turn the car around, I'll just take a minute. If it's more than a couple minutes, you can leave me. Just drop me by the side of the road. And she actually turns the freaking car around, goes to this place to drop him off so he can tell her. And she's just waiting with the kids in the car. Meanwhile, the prison across the street's, up in flames and da-da-da. It's like, if that were me, I'd be like, no, dude, no, I'm not, no. F you, no, I'm not doing that. Like, my kids are in the car. No, let's go. Now or never, dude. So I was, that part definitely annoyed me. Definitely, line in the sand for me there. A couple more things that I like about the book. There's a mention of, like I said, Hank living in his head and always having this inner, policeman monologue with himself. And again, with Hank being very relatable, I personally, related to that a lot, because I feel like I live in my head a lot, and, I'm constantly having this inner thing going on. I really like that there was a reference to Lord of the Flies in there. At one point, he goes to the University of New Hampshire's campus, where this Free Republic of New Hampshire has been set up, and he's trying to find a girl that he thinks might know where Brett is. And he goes into where this trial's going on, and he describes the one council member as piggy looking. And later on, he finds a girl, they're talking, and she's explaining why she falsified charges against this guy. And essentially it's, I had to make up that he stole something because actually he's a rapist and we would have to hang him. And the guy on the council is just really bloodthirsty, the piggy looking one. She was like, I don't want a Lord of the Flies situation in here. So I just thought that was like amazing, because Piggy in Lord of the Flies is the one who dies. So the fact that there is now a piggy character who is bloodthirsty, that to me was like genius. Like, I love it. Something else I really liked and I found kind of interesting. I always kind of like when this happens. So how there are people out there, and sorry if you're one of these people, but they're like very philosophical. They want to be, they want to be like Vulcan, and everything's based on logic, and feelings have no place in this, and based on blah blah blah, and Socrates and blah blah blah, whatever. Feelings, blah, bad duty things or whatever. And he essentially calls bullshit on it. Because he goes to interview the girl who knows where Brett might be. And she's acting like, feelings are these dirty things. And he's like, nevertheless, you had feelings for him. And he's just like, I wish I could, like, read you the entire thing, but it would, like, make the video way too long to do so. I really like when that kind of character can be brought down. Because feelings are like the essence of who we are. Um, and there's nothing wrong with feelings. It's just what you do with feelings that's wrong. Um, how you act upon them and how you inflict them upon others. That's where, feelings become wrong. Um, so I really enjoy when that kind of character can be brought down. Because it's, you can philosophize all you want and, you can try to be as Spock as you want. But at the end of the day, like, feelings are not bad. They are not bad things. So, I'm getting off my soapbox now, but I really enjoyed that bit. Hmm. This book really looked more at different types of right. And you see this most starkly between Brett and Hank. Brett's sense of right tells him that there are entire ships of immigrants trying to flee the asteroid. I am right in helping those people, even if it means killing members of the Coast Guard and other servicemen and women trying to sink these ships. Whereas Hank's sense of right is, dude, no, you can't do that. Like, you can't kill you can't justify killing like that. And in a way, it sucks because Hank ends up seeing this ship be sunk and all these people drowning and dying in the water. So, could he have avoided that? Maybe, but then he would have had to live with the implications of having killed someone in that manner on his conscience. But hey, in 77 days it won't matter anyway. Blah blah blah. So at the end of the book, you're left with everyone at the police house in Western Massachusetts, except for Nico. When Hank gets injured, she magically shows up in a helicopter and drops him off at a hospital, and she's off to parts unknown to find a scientist to get him to England to hopefully set the asteroid off course. And it's really set up at the end that he is going to look for Nico in the third book, and that's going to be the main focus. And looking at the Goodreads, in the third book, you're going to be 2 weeks out from the asteroid hitting, and the two questions. How far will you go to protect a loved one, and how would you spend your last 2 weeks? Now this book was from 2013. So at the time this was published, there was actually a contest sort of thing going on where people could submit, what would you do if an asteroid was coming if you only had 2 weeks to live? And he integrated those things into his book. So obviously it's a little, past time for me to submit my ideas to the author. But what would I do if I had 2 weeks to live? First off, if I were still working, I would stop working. I would probably travel to as safe a place as I could get, as far away from Indonesia as possible. So I'd probably be somewhere on the eastern seaboard. Midwest to eastern seaboard. I would spend as much time with my family as possible. I don't know if I would read anymore. I mean, I would still want to read, but I think the impulse to spend time with my family would be higher on my list. Or maybe we would do like collective reading. I don't know what I would do with my kids though, because my kids are 5 and 2. So, if they were teenagers, we would kind of, first off, if they were teenagers, I'd probably be like, here, you want a beer? But with a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, I think I would probably spend a good amount of time probably crying, just because they're so young, you don't want to think about your kids dying, and you don't want to think about your kids going through that sort of situation. So I'd probably grieve a little bit. Try not to grieve too much, but I would probably grieve. Probably like I said, try to find the safest place possible. But I don't know. Like, what do you do if you have 2 weeks to live? I don't know. You tell me. Hit me up in the comments. What would you do if you had only 2 weeks to live? Hopefully you have better ideas than I do. I mean, family is very important, but I mean, there's gotta be something you can do, right? I mean, I don't know. I was about to say I'd probably be drinking a lot. Maybe after the kids go to bed. Start drinking a lot. I don't know. I have no idea. But anyway, so hit like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Hit me up in the comments. Tell me what you thought of the book. What would you do if you had only 2 weeks to live? And in the meantime, tell me what books you're reading. What do you enjoy? What do you want to see me read next? One of the upcoming books will be the final book in this series. Otherwise, I am also working on a book called The Girl with All the Gifts. It's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like a zombie book. But it's, you know, there are definitely changes to it compared to, you know, your standard Walking Dead, Night of the Living Dead type zombie stories. So I'm working on that, and that's really ramping up to book number 2 of that series. I forget, it's like the Boy at the Ledge or something like that. Whatever book number 2 in the series is, it just came out this year, so I'm ramping up to reading, you know, book number 2. But in the meantime, that's my review. I hope you liked it, and until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day.